Welcome to Mishna study Masachat Terumot Perek Mishnah Vav. We're continuing with the tiltan with these Fenugreek, and we're going to speak now of bundles of Fenugreek. We'll speak about two cases. Firstly, Misha Yulo Havide Tiltan Shekila Kerem Yidaleku. If someone has tiltan, this Fenugreek that was part of a vineyard, we know you're not allowed to plant these items in a vineyard, and if you did, they become asur b'hana'as. Therefore, they need to be burnt. Yidaleku. Let's say you had these bundles of Fenugreek that were tevel. Right? Now, Rambam explains over here that what kind of tevel is it? It's tevel tavul litrumat ma'aser, meaning what? That the Levi jumped the gun. Right? Israel, regular person, had his Fenugreek. He was going to separate 2%, give to the Kohen, 10% give to the Levi. Right? But what happened? The Levi came and he took his portion before the Israel was able to give the Terumat to the Kohen. Okay? So he went ahead and he did that. He took it in its raw stage. Right, before it was, threshed, before it was, the seeds were separated from the sheaf. Levi he jumped the gun, and he took his portion early. What does the Levi have to do now? The Levi needs to separate 10% and give it to the Kohen. Right, he has to give Terumat Ma'aser. Now, is the Levi allowed to go ahead and come say, you know what? I got it in its raw state. Let me give it to the Kohen in the raw state. I got it, the Fenugreek in these bundles. I got 10 bundles. Let me take one of these bundles and I'll give one of these bundles to the Kohen. Right? That's what he would want to do. Over here, in this case, we say no. The Levi is not allowed to do that. And this is a fine for the Levi for jumping the gun. Right? Because he acted hastily and he took his ma'aser before the Kohen received his terumah. And in essence, he's really lessening the amount that the Kohen was getting. Right, because now the Kohen is getting 2% off the 90 that was left instead of 2% off the 100. So, because he, sort of gypped the Kohen a little, therefore we say that the Levi over here, he has to go ahead and thresh the Fenugreek, right? Thresh the item that he took and give it to the Kohen in its finished state, right? That's how he has to go ahead and do so. And we learned some of this already in Masachet Berachot in the 7th perek over there. And this is what the Gemara actually means. What the Gemara says, let the Levi say, the same way I received it, let me give it to him. Right? Why can't we do that? Amarava kenasa. Right? It's a fine. It's a fine for the Levi. So what does he have to do now? Kotesh umhashev kama zera b'hem. He has to go ahead, actually grind it up, separate the Fenugreek from the sheaf, right, from the stalks, and mehashev estimate how much zera, how much seeds there were over there. Umafrish et zera. Ve'lo tzarich la'afrish ta'etz. Right? He goes and he separates the seed, and he doesn't have to go ahead and separate from the branches themselves, right? Because the branches aren't considered terumah, so he only has to give from the seed themselves. Now, what's interesting is over here we say that he has to go ahead and estimate how much seeds there are, right? Which is interesting because we're talking about Terumat Ma'aser over here. If you remember Terumat Ma'aser, when we spoke about, right, we said that Terumat Ma'aser needs to be given exactly. And over here we're saying there's an estimation, right? So this opinion is really not the standard opinion, right? This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Gamol, right? So he says, he actually learns from the Pasuk when it says, V'nachshav lachem terumatchem, right? So two terumot, right? B'shtei terumot hakatuv medaber, achat terumah gdula v'achat terumat ma'aser, right? So the same way terumah gdula you're only allowed to give with an estimation, right? So too, like that everyone agrees to. So too terumat ma'aser, he says you're only allowed to give with an estimation, but this separa is actually dehuya, right? It says it's pushed away. It's not taken the halacha, but it says the halacha is like we said that hamonem meshubach. Right, the person who counts, he's that's great. Hamoded mishubach mimenu. If you're weighing it, if you're taking the volume measurement, that's even more about shokel mishubach mishoshan. If you go ahead and weigh it out, that's even more, even better. Right, so we see Terumat Ma'aser. The halacha is that you have to go ahead and separate it in exact amount. But our Mishnah is according to a single opinion, and that's why you would use the language of Mahashev. Now, v'imifrish. Now, let's say he went ahead and he separated it. Right? You want to separate it. Now you can't say, oh, you know what? Let me grind it up. I'm going to keep the branches, the shaft for myself, right? And I'll go ahead and I'll give him the seeds. Right? Rather, what does he have to do? He has to go ahead and separate the etz, right? He has to go ahead and separate the the stalks themselves with the seed, right? So, right, that's in a case where he did set aside the teruma already from the stalks. So once you do that, you can't go ahead and try to manipulate. Okay, now just at the end, that finishes off the Mishnah. Now Rambam just says, why are we talking about Fenugreek? Right? Why is that so important? And he points out that this would really be the law with anything that's chayav in teruma, right? Our Mishnah. But why do we choose Fenugreek? Because this is something that it's a stalk, right, and its seed, right, are very similar to one another. So we could have thought that you need to separate ma'aser even from the stalk itself, and therefore the Mishnah teaches us that you don't